expansive. The scenery inside the dungeon could best be described this way. When Damien entered the gate, all he could see was a huge cave system that spanned the distance of several miles. Its end at a point he couldn't even see. Alright folks, we should only be seeing first-class beasts that are at most level 20 around this floor, so be prepared to take them out. Even if they're weak, we still have to stay vigilant in case something unexpected happens. Once Jin gave the order, the team began moving, with Damien following at a slight distance behind them. As time passed, the raid continued without a hitch. With beasts being at the maximum of level 20, the attack squad, which is comprised of many first classes whose levels average around 30%, weren't having any issues, especially with Elena present. Whenever they met a beast that seemed like they would need to team up to kill, she would charge forward with her sword and start slashing in a seemingly reckless manner. After all, no matter how refined her fighting style was, its base principle was her ability to constantly heal herself and replenish stamina. With this, no beast near or even slightly above her level was her match. However, even with this assurance, the team continued forward vigilantly. The most dangerous aspect of weaker dungeons like this one wasn't always the beasts. Around 2 years after the World Awakening, when humanity was finally beginning to completely adapt to mana and the changes it brought, they discovered something that changed their entire viewpoint of its capabilities. When an advanced party from a nameless guild was exploring one of their dungeons, they came across other humanoid species. Naturally, they attempted communication before wantonly attacking and accidentally discovered that they were no longer speaking any languages that existed on Earth. As it turns out, the introduction of mana and the system that follows it grants all beings under its influence with a shared language. As the inhabitants of Earth use English as their universal language, this new language wasn't introduced until they came into contact with other intelligent species. When the members of this guild began speaking to the humanoid individuals, they learned that the dungeon they were in was actually connected to another world called Lahore. As other guilds also began meeting intelligent races in dungeons, they learned of the existence of countless other worlds. As it was explained by the denizens of some of those other worlds, gates are phenomena that only appear in worlds that are newly awakened to mana. After a world has adapted to and assimilated with mana, dungeons are structures that naturally spawn, however. A world that hasn't fully assimilated with mana doesn't have the structural integrity to hold constructs born from mana, such as dungeons, without collapsing. Due to this, gates appear and connect to dungeons in various other worlds. In one dungeon, connected to a world called the Cloud Plane, Earthlings met humans that treat the system as something akin to the heavens. And rather than leveling up, they consider it as cultivation. Through these countless interactions with other world denizens, the citizens of Earth learned many things, especially the fact that these other world denizens are barred entry to Earth through the gates. It seemed to have something to do with the concept of balance. However, because humanity has only lived with mana and the system for 6 years, they weren't able to completely understand these more complex theories. Several hours pass, and the dungeon seemed to have been mostly cleared. The group decided to take a break before commencing their final sweep. During this break, Elena naturally went to Damien to check on him and chat for a while. In another area of the dungeon, Jin stood with a hateful look in his eyes. Damn it, that woman should be mine. Why does she keep looking at that trash instead of me? Throughout the entire time they were raiding the dungeon, Jin was constantly trying to show his strength and valor to impress Elena, but she acted like he didn't exist. As the only son of a wealthy and influential father, Jin was never treated with indifference like what Elena shows him. But that only makes me want her more. Jin looked over at Elena, who was chatting and laughing with Damien, showing a completely different personality than she did with others as envy began to cloud his mind. All I have to do, I get rid of that trash. If that hindrance is gone, then there's nothing stopping her from becoming my woman. Hey, anything can happen inside a dungeon, right? If a weak porter dies because a beast just happens to break through the lines. His expression twisted as his thoughts continued, and a malevolent aura started to spread, only to be retracted immediately after. Damien, was it? Well, I guess I'll let you have her for now, since it'll be the last conversation you ever have. Meanwhile, Damien continued chatting and laughing with Elena, oblivious to the fact that he was being put to death by an arrogant young master. So? This dungeon seems to be pretty normal to me. I don't see why the signature it gave off was so weird. Elena pondered. Maybe it has multiple floors? If that's the case, then there's nothing to worry about since the gate will close once we clear this floor. But isn't that good news for you? You get more money for less work. Yeah, I guess so. Anyway, it looks like that asshole is gathering everyone up again, so you should probably head over. When the attack squad began gathering, however, a thunderous roar resounded through the cavern. As heavy footsteps approached the group. Fuck! Exclaimed Jin. Just from its aura, I can tell that it's probably a first class. Everyone get together and be ready to either fight or flee on my command. When the footsteps stopped, what was revealed was a massive tiger-like beast around 20 meters tall that had a fiery aura radiating from its body. It looks around level 50 and newly ascended second class. If we work together, we should be able to kill it, Jin yelled. Damien retreated many meters as to not get caught in the crossfire as he watched the attack squad get into formation. The squad comprised of 2 tankers, 2 healers, a mage, and 3 damage dealers, including Elena and Jin. The beast charged forward with a roar and shot flames from its mouth. As the tankers took the hit, the mage utilized his ice affinity to freeze the beast's paws. Elena and Jin charged, while Jin melded into the shadows and sliced at the beast's tendons and other sensitive areas with his twin daggers. Elena confronted it head-on. The tiger roared in anger and swung its paws at Elena while she deftly dodged and slashed at its neck. Time passed as the squad slowly chipped away at the beast, making it accumulate various gashes and wounds. With Elena's ability, she was able to keep fighting even after most of the team had run out of mana or stamina. With the mage letting out occasional ice spikes as his mana replenished, and Jin limiting its movements by cutting its exposed tendons and ligaments, around 15 minutes later, she managed to land a fatal hit, letting the beast drop to the floor, dead. With the comprehensive planning and experience they had, the team managed to finish the fight without any unexpected circumstances and were promptly healed by the healers. As everyone began catching their breaths, the entire cave began to rumble. Everyone's faces immediately paled. "The gate's closing. We need to get out of here," yelled one of the tankers as he ran with all his might. Everyone else soon followed, as even Damien had to continuously teleport to reach the gate. Being trapped in a dungeon usually meant death with no escape. Once the gate closes, there is no connection left to Earth, so even if one manages to escape the dungeon, they're trapped in a completely different world. As Damien ran, he looked around for Elena and noticed her falling behind. "Elena, what are you doing?" Damien yelled before abruptly realizing the situation. The gate closed out of nowhere, and as the one who did most of the work to kill the 2 ND-class beasts, she must have used most of her mana. Without being given time to rest, she was basically on the verge of fainting. "Fuck!" Damien cursed as he ran back to grab her. He put his arm around Elena's waist, which she subconsciously rejected before realizing it was him. Then, without pause, began spamming his short-distance teleportation to flee. As the gate came into sight, Damien felt his mana draining at a rapid rate, and his body began to break down. His blood churned and leaked through his pores, but he kept going. He remembered his ominous feeling, and he remembered his resolve, and just as his internal organs were going to rupture, he made it out of the gate. As he set Elena on the ground, he smiled. Although it felt a bit anticlimactic, he was glad he managed to get both of them out of the gate without issues. And then, just as he was about to ask Elena, who had regained some vigor, how she was doing, he felt his body flying backward. "Huh? Backward? What's going on?" Damien thought as his mind failed to understand what caused such a bizarre situation. As reality sunk in, he began to panic. He knew that what was behind him was a gate that was on the verge of closing, but he had no means to save himself. His mana was overdrawn, his body was at its limit, and his consciousness was already weak. As he felt the mana current to the gate graze his back, the last thing he saw was Elena's horrified expression and a certain bastard smiling at him and waving. And then everything went dark. Feeling an aching pain all over his body, Damien slowly opened his eyes, only to be greeted by cold hard stone in every direction. "Huh? Where am I?" Damien thought before he remembered the events that led to this point. "Fuck! That arrogant bastard actually pushed me into the gate. I didn't do anything to." Before his thoughts could go too far, Damien heard a series of roars and screeches coming towards him. When he looked down, he realized that he was covered in blood, which must have attracted beasts. Coming to this realization, his face paled. He quickly got up, confirming that enough time had passed for him to regenerate from any major wounds, and ran. Damien was weak. He had spent the majority of his life after the world awakening fretting over his weakness, and now in this situation, his weakness became all the more apparent. He ran and ran, but the beasts naturally weren't only in one direction. Damien could only consider himself lucky that the beasts in the immediate surroundings of the gate had been wiped, or else he would have died before he even woke up. Fuck. What do? I can't fight, but I can't live without food. If I don't fight, I'll die, but if I fight, I'll also die, Damien panicked. Although he had plenty of experience inside gates, his level of combat experience was almost nil. He had probably stabbed a sword a couple of times when he stole kills to level up. Damien didn't know how long he ran, but it was long enough for the cries of beasts to fade into the distance. He approached a cave wall and sat down to rest his aching body. This amount of running could be considered the most physical exercise he's had in a very long time. As he sat with his back to the wall, he tried to calm his breathing and mind, but no matter what he tried, his thoughts wouldn't stop. "I'll die. I'll really die. I can't do shit against beasts. I don't have a weapon. I don't have muscles. I don't have offensive skills. I have nothing. I don't know where this dungeon is. I don't know how far away Earth is, or if it's even in the same galaxy. What will happen to Mom when I'm not around?" Pah! Damien slapped himself in the face. "No, I can't give up yet. Even if she thinks I'm dead, it's fine. What I need to do now is survive. Survive and make it back to Earth. Make it back to Mom, make it back to Elena, and make it back to drop a planet on that sick bastard's head or something." Thinking of that last point, Damien's blood boiled in a fury. Damien let all of Jin's antics slide because of his background. He had to endure because he had nothing. He ended up in this situation because he was weak. I have to get stronger. It doesn't matter what I have to do to reach that point, but I have to get strong enough to return. Though he was still in a panic over the situation, he knew that if he sat still and did nothing, his only outcome was death. He had always worked without fear beforehand, and now, even though the situation is much direr, all he needs to do is the same thing he always did. Survive. Damien, you must always remember, although you are weak, you must forge a will to live, a will to achieve, and a will to survive. No matter the circumstance and no matter the adversity, you must survive, because if you survive and you fight and you persevere through it all, one day you'll become someone that even the heavens must look up to. Damien thought back to his dad's last words before he disappeared to who knows where. Fuck, why am I thinking about that bastard right now? But no matter how much he cursed his father, he could never bring himself to hate him. As he grew and thought back to his last memories of his father, he could feel the pain his father always hid from him and his mother. And thinking about his father's words in the situation he's in now, he could feel his father's resolve. Though he didn't know what that resolve was towards, it didn't matter anymore. Damn it. If that guy could talk all that martial master bullshit and forge such a resolve even before the world awakening happened, why should I pussy out here? I need to go back and cure Mom. I need to go back and check on Elena. I need to go back and pummel that arrogant asshole. And I need to find my father one day and punch him in the face. Damien began to forge his resolve. He had forgotten in his panic, but he hadn't died yet, and he still had plenty of things to do. As long as he hadn't died, he could still achieve what he wanted to achieve. As long as he hadn't died, just like his dad used to say, he's become someone even the heavens must look up to. It seemed like space itself had bore witness to his resolve and his declaration, as the space within a 25-meter radius of Damien started to twist and distort. Unfortunately, Damien was too deep in his thoughts to notice. Suddenly, he snapped his eyes open, and the space reverted to normal. Several hours had passed since Damien sat down to rest, but it seemed he was in a relatively secluded area since no beast attacked him during his panic. Geez, I must be some kind of idiot to have a panic attack in this kind of life or death situation. How do those novel MCs even adapt shit like this happening so fast? Damien chuckled. Well, if I was a novel MC, my plot armor would have saved my mom by now, and I get a random power boost to deal with this situation, but obviously that isn't happening. Damien stood up, his eyes having regained their clarity. He began to quietly run around the dungeon floor. No matter which world this dungeon is connected to, it has to have weapons, and someone had to have died in here before. There's no way our party was the first to ever explore it, and after what seemed like hours of running, he found what he was looking for, a pile of bones and a slightly rusted pair of short swords. I was kind of hoping for a spear, but short swords work too, Damien thought as he picked them up. They were entirely made of some type of black metal, and although the one of them was showing signs of cracking already, they were more than sharp enough to work as a temporary solution. Well then, let's get to hunting. One day passed since then, and Damien could be seen crouching behind a rock with his short swords out. At the moment he was stalking his prey, which was a bunny. Even Damien thought it was extremely lame for him to hunt bunnies, but when he carelessly attempted to kill the first one, his only reward was a deep gash on his leg that still hadn't healed. Because of that, Damien started calling this species demon bunnies, and began using hit-and-run tactics using his teleportation to kill them while they were off guard. Now, and just like every time he hunted for the past day, he waited for his opportunity and teleported directly behind the bunny, stabbing his short swords down before he even teleported, instantly killing it. Another discovery he made was that his teleportation ability carried his momentum. Although he had no idea how that worked scientifically, old laws of science didn't apply to the new reality. Still, he did his best to use the old science he learned to justify his power. It was human instinct to try and define the unknown in terms one already has knowledge of. Using his bunny killing method, he had already gained a level, but killing the same beast too many times significantly decreases the amount of experience earned, so he would have to move on to bigger prey soon. Grabbing the fresh bunny carcass, Damien went back to the cave he had found and set up residence in yesterday. He threw the body into the pile of other bodies and sat down. Today would be his second day going without food or water, but he was holding up relatively well due to the rich density of mana in the environment. Although he had 6 or 7 demon bunny corpses, he knew it would be stupid if he ate them, as he is now. Beast mana is infused in their bodies to strengthen them, and is incompatible with humans, so it's usually impossible to eat beasts unless the carcasses are purified by a priest class or similar people. When the world first changed, there was a couple of cases of people trying to cook and eat beast meat. However, things didn't end well for them. Through further research, it was discovered that 99% of the time, people who ate non-purified beast meat had their bodies corrupted by the foreign mana and exploded. The other 1% of people mutated into demi-humans, but not the cute cat girl kind of that show up in the manga. Rather, they would have wolf heads and wolf paws with random tufts of fur jutting out from their bodies. These people also tended to lose most of their reasoning, becoming more animalistic and primal, even knowing about these abysmal odds. Damien had a certain level of confidence in mutating successfully as long as he got stronger before he attempted it. Either way, he would have to eat the beast meat. He just decided to delay it to increase his chances. However, he could only last at most another day or two before he needs to eat. Once Damien got his thoughts in order, he thought back to the layout he made of the floor he's on. I don't know which floor this is, but it's definitely near the top. There are also only classless beasts on this floor since the rest were wiped out during the raid. Although it's frustrating, there's no way to go up or closer to the surface. There's only a single staircase that leads to the next floor. I can't gain much more from classless beasts unless I kill everything alive on this floor, but that'll drain my stamina to the point where I'll be forced to eat the beast meat and take my chances with mutation. As his thoughts followed this path, he made his decision. I already firmed my resolve. There's no more use in hesitating. If it means I can get stronger faster, I'll go down to the next floor. But first, he decided to rest. Among the classless beasts here, he could reign relatively supreme with his teleportation, so they don't usually disturb the area where he stays. What felt like a couple of hours later, Damien woke up feeling refreshed. Since it's only been around a day and a half since he got stranded, he still had a relative view of the time. When he got up, he looked at the pile of corpses he'd made and sighed. He didn't know if he'd be able to come back for these and felt it was a waste to save them. Okay, it's time to go. This will be my first time facing real danger in my life. With an increased sense of vigilance, Damien walked down the staircase leading to the next floor. When he reached what he had dubbed as the second floor, he was surprised to find that plants were growing here and there. Although it was mostly as desolate as the first floor, it still had a bit of spice. Damien was pleasantly surprised by this discovery. After all, this meant that there was a possibility of there being a water source somewhere in this dungeon. As Damien vigilantly walked through this new floor, he finally met his first prey. In front of him was a gray wolf that was slightly shorter than the average human, and judging from the aura it gave off, it was probably around level 8 or 9. Damien and the wolf eyed each other vigilantly before the wolf made the first move and pounced. Damien jumped to his right and drew his short swords. He then teleported to the left side of the wolf and slashed down. The wolf howled in pain as a gash was created in its side and attempted to bite Damien. However, he had already teleported to the adjacent side of the wolf, repeating his previous motion. The wolf, in its confusion, turned completely towards Damien, who vanished from the spot and continued his tactics. 3 stabs later, the wolf collapsed to the floor. You killed LVL Grey Wolf, obtained 50 XP. Ha. Ha. Since the wolf didn't possess a great deal of intelligence, it was relatively easy to deal with, but Damien was still gasping for air. After all, he was never in frontal confrontations before this. Still, he couldn't help but smile. Even though his fight was for survival, he found himself having fun. Fighting, killing, growing stronger. Ever since the possibilities opened up with the introduction of mana, this was all he ever wanted to do. As he looked forward to the seemingly limitless future, he reaffirmed his determination. I will survive.